Matt couldn't shake the feeling that something was different about Jenna lately. It wasn't just one thing. It was a collection of little details that, on their own, might have meant nothing. But together, they painted a picture he didn't understand. For starters, Jenna had become glued to her phone. She wasn't careless about it either. Whenever Matt walked into the room, she'd quickly lock the screen or flip it over on the counter. He wasn't the paranoid type, but it was hard not to notice. Her schedule had also started to change. Jenna had always been a creature of habit, work, gym, and home by 6 p.m., like clockwork. But over the past month, there were new additions: work dinners, late-night errands, and once, a vague excuse about needing time to clear her head. Each time, she'd leave the house dressed sharper than usual, perfect makeup, a spritz of her favorite perfume, and heels she rarely wore for just him anymore. When Matt asked where she was going, she'd smile and shrug, offering just enough detail to dissuade him from prying further. It wasn't just the logistics either. Jenna herself seemed brighter, more animated. She hummed to herself as she folded laundry, her face lit with an energy that hadn't been there for months. When Matt asked if something good had happened, she'd smile and say, "Just feeling positive." He wanted to believe her. He wanted to believe everything was fine. But there was something in her eyes when she answered, something guarded, like she was keeping a part of herself out of reach. It all came to a head one Thursday evening. Matt came home early from work, hoping to surprise Jenna with takeout from her favorite Thai place. As he pulled into the driveway, he noticed her car wasn't there, even though she should have been home an hour ago. Once inside, the house felt eerily quiet. He set the food on the counter and checked his phone. No texts or missed calls. Frowning, he wandered into the bedroom to change. That's when he noticed the closet door was ajar, one of her dresses missing, a sleek black one she hadn't worn in ages. Matt's gut tightened. He'd seen her wear it before on date nights, back when they still made time for each other like that. At that moment, her text came through. "Working late. Don't wait up." He stared at the message for what felt like an eternity. His hand hovered over the keyboard to reply but stopped. Something wasn't adding up. She never used to dress up for work, not like this. Where was she? And, more importantly, who was she with? Matt shook his head, trying to push away the creeping thoughts. But the seeds of doubt had already been planted. And as he sat there, alone in the quiet house, he couldn't shake the feeling that Jenna wasn't just drifting away. She was running towards something, or someone. The next morning, Matt woke up with a sinking feeling that refused to fade. He hated the thought of spying on Jenna. After all, she was his wife. They had promised to trust each other. But lately, trust had become a question mark, one he couldn't ignore. That evening, Matt decided to test his suspicions. He kept things normal at dinner, asking Jenna about her day, smiling at her jokes. She seemed relaxed, carefree even, which only deepened the knot in his stomach. "Anything planned for tonight?" he asked casually as they cleaned up the dishes. Jenna hesitated, just for a second, before smiling. "Oh, nothing much. I might take a drive, clear my head a bit." "Mind if I join you?" he asked, trying to sound lighthearted. Her smile faltered. "It's not really a thing. Just me time, you know? Besides, you look tired. Why don't you just relax tonight?" Matt nodded, keeping his expression neutral. Inside, his heart sank. She had never been this evasive before. Around 8 p.m., Jenna grabbed her keys and purse, giving him a quick kiss on the cheek before heading out the door. Matt waited, counting to 30 before grabbing his jacket and car keys. He felt a pang of guilt as he slipped out after her, but his curiosity overpowered it. Keeping his distance, Matt trailed her car as she weaved through town. It wasn't long before she turned off onto a quieter road, one lined with dim streetlights and modest houses. Finally, she parked in front of a small cafe he didn't recognize. Matt parked a block away, careful to keep out of sight. From the safety of his car, he watched as Jenna stepped out, her black heels clicking softly on the pavement. She looked stunning in that same dress from the closet, a fact that filled him with equal parts pride and dread. His pulse quickened as she approached the cafe entrance. Inside, a man sat alone at a table near the window, scrolling through his phone. Jenna smiled as she walked up to him, and Matt's breath caught in his throat. It was Kevin. His best friend. Matt froze, gripping the steering wheel as his mind scrambled to make sense of the scene. Kevin stood, greeting Jenna with a warm hug that lingered just a little too long. They sat down, leaning toward each other in a way that felt too familiar, too intimate. Matt's chest tightened, anger and confusion battling for dominance. Was this just a friendly meeting? Or was it what he had feared all along? He reached for his phone, debating whether to call Jenna or burst through the cafe doors. But something stopped him. He needed to know more, needed proof before jumping to conclusions. So he stayed in his car, watching through the window as the two of them laughed and talked, their heads tilted close together. His stomach churned as Jenna reached across the table, her hand brushing Kevin's. Matt didn't know how long he sat there, frozen in disbelief. By the time Jenna and Kevin stood to leave, his heart was pounding so hard it felt like it might break through his ribs. He sank lower in his seat as they walked out, talking quietly as they headed toward their cars. Jenna smiled at Kevin one last time before driving off. Matt waited until Kevin's car disappeared into the night, then started his engine. He followed Jenna home, his mind racing with questions he wasn't sure he wanted answers to. When he walked through the door, Jenna was already in the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of water. She turned and smiled at him, the picture of casual innocence. "Hey, you're up late," she said. "Everything okay?" Matt forced a smile, swallowing the lump in his throat. "Yeah," he lied. "Everything's fine." But nothing felt fine anymore. Matt barely slept that night. He lay staring at the ceiling. The image of Jenna and Kevin laughing together burned into his mind. He replayed every moment of their meeting, from the lingering hug to the way Jenna's hand had brushed Kevin's. By morning, his emotions had spiraled. Confusion, anger, heartbreak, all tangled together. He couldn't keep this to himself anymore. He needed answers. At breakfast, Jenna was her usual cheerful self, humming softly as she buttered her toast. It felt surreal to watch her act so normal, like nothing had happened the night before. Matt cleared his throat. "So, did your drive help clear your head?" he asked, trying to sound casual. Jenna glanced up, her smile unwavering. "Yeah, it really did. Thanks for letting me have some alone time." Alone time? The lie stung more than Matt expected. He clenched his jaw, debating whether to confront her right then and there. But something held him back. Fear, maybe, or the hope that there was some innocent explanation. "I'm glad," he said, forcing himself to match her tone. For the rest of the day, Matt couldn't focus on anything. Every time Jenna looked at him, he felt a mix of guilt and resentment. Was he wrong to spy on her? Or was she the one betraying their marriage? That evening, Matt decided he couldn't take it anymore. As Jenna stepped out of the shower, towel wrapped around her, he blurted it out. "Jenna, are you seeing someone else?" She froze, her expression flickering between shock and something Matt couldn't quite place. "What?" she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You heard me," he said, standing. "Are you seeing someone else? Because last night, I followed you." Her eyes widened. "You followed me?" "Yes," Matt admitted, his voice cracking. "And I saw you meeting Kevin." For a moment, silence hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Jenna's face flushed as she clutched the towel tighter around herself. "You had no right to do that," she snapped. "Spying on me? Following me? That's—" "No," Matt interrupted, his voice rising. "You don't get to make this about me. I've been noticing things, Jenna. You've been sneaking around, lying to me. And now you're meeting my best friend behind my back? What's going on?" Jenna's lips trembled, and for a brief moment, Matt thought she might deny everything. But instead, she let out a shaky breath and sat on the edge of the bed. "I didn't mean for it to happen this way," she said quietly, her hands fidgeting in her lap. Matt's heart sank. "Happen what way?" Jenna looked up at him, her eyes filled with guilt. "I've been meeting Kevin because I needed someone to talk to. Someone who understands me." Matt's fists clenched at his sides. "You couldn't talk to me? Your husband?" "It's not that simple," she said, her voice rising slightly. "You don't listen, Matt. Not really. Kevin, he listens. He makes me feel heard." Matt's chest tightened. "So what, Jenna? Are you in love with him?" Her silence was deafening. Matt let out a bitter laugh, pacing the room. Unbelievable. My wife and my best friend. How long has this been going on? Jenna shook her head, tears streaming down her face. It's not like that, Matt. We didn't. We didn't sleep together or anything. But what? Matt snapped, whirling to face her. You had emotional affairs? Private meetings? What else am I supposed to think? Jenna buried her face in her hands, sobbing. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't mean for this to happen. I love you, Matt, but I've felt so lonely lately. I just needed something. Matt stared at her, his mind racing. Part of him wanted to believe her, to trust that this was just a mistake, something they could fix. But the image of her with Kevin loomed in his mind, refusing to fade. Do you want to be with him? He asked, his voice hoarse. Jenna looked up, her face pale. No, she said quickly. I want to be with you. But I needed this escape. I needed to feel alive again. Matt didn't know what to say. The woman he loved had betrayed him in a way he never thought possible, and now he was left wondering if their marriage could ever recover. I need some time, he finally said, turning toward the door. Matt, wait, Jenna called. But he was already walking away, the weight of her confession pressing down on him like 1,000 bricks. He didn't know where to go or what to do. All he knew was that the life he thought he had was gone, and he wasn't sure if it was something he could ever rebuild. Matt spent the night driving aimlessly, his mind reeling from Jenna's confession. Every streetlight, every passing car felt surreal, like the world had shifted and he no longer belonged in it. How had things gotten this far without him noticing? Was he so blind? Or was Jenna just that good at hiding it? Eventually, he parked in an empty lot by the river. The sound of the water lapping against the shore was calming, but it couldn't quiet the storm inside him. He pulled out his phone, his thumb hovering over Kevin's contact. It took him a minute, but he pressed call. Hey, Matt, Kevin's voice came through, casual and friendly, as if nothing had happened. Matt gritted his teeth. We need to talk. Now. There was a pause on the other end. Okay. Is everything all right? Don't play dumb, Matt said coldly. I know about you and Jenna. The silence this time was longer. Matt, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Cut the crap, Kevin. Matt snapped, his voice echoing in the car. I saw you two last night. I saw her dressed up, smiling at you like you're the one she's married to. So don't you dare tell me this is some misunderstanding. Kevin exhaled sharply. All right, fine. Let's meet and talk about this. Face to face. Fine. The riverfront lot in 20 minutes. Matt hung up, his blood boiling. He wanted answers, needed them. But more than anything, he wanted to know how the person he trusted most could betray him like this. Kevin showed up right on time, stepping out of his car with his hands raised in a defensive gesture. Matt, listen. No, Matt interrupted, stepping toward him. You listen. I want the truth. All of it. How long has this been going on? Kevin sighed, running a hand through his hair. It's not what you think, man. Don't give me that, Matt growled. I saw you too, Kevin. I saw how close you were, how she looked at you. You've been meeting behind my back. So tell me, did you sleep with her? Kevin's face twisted in frustration. No, Matt. I swear to you, it didn't go that far. Then what? What had happened? Kevin hesitated, and that pause was all Matt needed to know he wasn't getting the whole story. She was struggling, Kevin finally said, his voice softer. She felt alone, like you weren't there for her. She started opening up to me, and yeah, we got close. But it wasn't some big affair, okay? It was emotional, but we never crossed that line. Matt stared at him, his hands curling into fists. You never crossed the line? Meeting secretly, hiding things from me. That's crossing the line, Kevin. You're supposed to be my best friend. I know, Kevin said quickly, and I hate myself for it. But Matt, she loves you. She's just been lost. Matt's jaw tightened. You don't get to speak for her. You don't get to speak at all. Do you have any idea what you've done? You've destroyed my marriage. My trust in both of you is gone. Kevin's face fell, guilt etched into every line. I'm sorry, Matt. I never meant to hurt you. I swear. If I could take it back? You can't, Matt cut him off. You can't take back what you did. You betrayed me, Kevin. And Jenna? Matt trailed off, the weight of the situation crashing down on him. His voice softened, but it carried a sharp edge. Stay away from her. Stay away from me. If I see you again, I swear to God, I won't hold back. Kevin nodded, his face pale. All right, I'll stay away. Without another word, Matt turned and walked back to his car, slamming the door behind him. He sat there for a long time, his head in his hands, trying to piece together what his next move should be. Confronting the future. When Matt got home, the house was dark. Jenna was asleep, curled up on her side of the bed. He stood in the doorway, watching her for a moment, wondering how they'd gotten here. How the woman he'd loved for years could feel so far away. The next morning, he confronted her. We're not okay, he said as she sipped her coffee. Jenna set the mug down, her face pale. I know. I talked to Kevin, Matt said bluntly, watching for her reaction. Her eyes widened briefly before she looked away. What did he say? That it was emotional, not physical, Matt said. But that doesn't make it any better. Jenna nodded slowly, tears brimming in her eyes. I know I hurt you, Matt, and I'll do anything to fix this. Therapy, counseling, whatever it takes. Matt stared at her, his heart breaking all over again. I don't know if this is something we can fix, Jenna. You didn't just hurt me. You broke my trust. And I don't know if I can get that back. Her tears spilled over, and she reached for his hand, but he pulled away. I need time, he said firmly. I need space to figure out if I can even forgive you. Jenna nodded, her sobs quiet but steady. Take all the time you need, she whispered. As Matt walked out of the house, unsure of where he was headed, he felt the weight of his shattered life pressing down on him. Whether or not they could rebuild what was broken, he didn't know. All he knew was that nothing would ever be the same. Matt spent the next week staying at a hotel across town. He told Jenna he needed time, but what he really needed was clarity. Every night, as he lay on the stiff, unfamiliar mattress, his mind replayed the last few weeks. The lies, the secrecy, the betrayal. It all felt like a nightmare he couldn't wake up from. Jenna had texted him a few times, short messages asking how he was doing and if he was ready to talk. He left her on read every time. He wasn't ready. How could he even begin to sort through the mess when the two people he trusted most had torn his world apart? On the fifth day, Matt's mother called him. Hey, sweetheart. Jenna called me earlier, she said, her voice cautious. Matt groaned inwardly. Mom, please don't tell me you're taking her side. I'm not taking anyone's side, his mother replied firmly. But she sounded genuinely remorseful, Matt. She said she's been looking into therapy for both of you. Matt sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. I don't know if therapy will fix this, Mom. I can't even look at her without thinking about Kevin, about what they did. Then tell her that, his mother said gently. But don't shut her out completely. At least give her a chance to make things right. Matt knew his mom meant well, but he wasn't sure if Jenna deserved another chance, or if he was strong enough to give her one. Jenna's confession. 2 days later, Matt agreed to meet Jenna at the house. As he walked through the door, he noticed she'd been tidying up. The living room was spotless, the faint scent of lavender cleaner lingering in the air. It was as if she was trying to create some illusion of normalcy, but it only made him feel more disconnected. Jenna was sitting on the couch, fidgeting with the edge of a pillow. When she saw him, she stood, her face a mix of hope and fear. Hey, she said softly. Hey, Matt replied, keeping his distance. Thank you for coming, she said, sitting back down. I know I'm probably the last person you want to see right now. You're not wrong, Matt said bluntly, sitting in the armchair across from her. So talk. What do you want to say? Jenna took a deep breath, her hands trembling in her lap. First, I need to say I'm sorry. For everything. For lying to you. For meeting Kevin behind your back. For breaking your trust. Matt crossed his arms, saying nothing. I wasn't honest with you because I was scared, she continued. Scared of how you'd react. Scared of admitting that I felt lost. I never wanted to hurt you, Matt. But I did, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. Why, Kevin? Matt asked, his voice tight. Out of everyone in the world, why did it have to be him? Jenna hesitated, then looked down at her hands. Because he was there. You've been so distant lately, wrapped up in work, in everything but me. I didn't know how to tell you that I felt invisible. Kevin listened. He made me feel seen. That's not an excuse, Matt snapped. If you felt invisible, you should have come to me, Jenna. I'm your husband, not him. I know, she whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. And I hate myself for turning to him instead of you. I wasn't thinking. I was selfish and stupid, and I ruined everything. For a moment, Matt just stared at her, his emotions swirling in a chaotic storm. Part of him wanted to believe her, to hold on to the hope that they could fix this. But another part of him, the part still burning with betrayal, wanted to walk out and never look back. What do you want from me, Jenna? He finally asked, his voice trembling. I want a chance to make this right, she said, meeting his eyes. I've already cut Kevin out of my life. I told him I don't want to see or speak to him again. All I care about is fixing us. I'll go to therapy. I'll do whatever it takes. Just, please don't give up on me. On us. Matt felt his throat tighten. He wanted to believe her, but trust wasn't something you could just patch up with promises. I don't know if I can do this, he said quietly. I don't know if I can ever look at you the same way again. Jenna nodded, tears streaming down her face. I understand, but I'm not giving up, Matt. Even if you need time, even if it takes months or years, I'll wait. Because I love you. Matt stood, his chest heavy. I need space, Jenna. Time to think. I'll let you know when I'm ready to talk again. Jenna didn't try to stop him as he walked toward the door. But as he stepped outside, he heard her sobs behind him, each one cutting deeper than the last. A path forward? Over the next few weeks, Matt threw himself into work, hoping it would distract him. But no matter how busy he kept himself, Jenna was always on his mind. So was Kevin. He started going to therapy on his own, trying to process his anger and confusion. His therapist encouraged him to think about what he wanted, not what others expected of him. Do you still love her? The therapist asked during one session. Matt didn't answer right away. The truth was, he wasn't sure. He loved the woman he thought Jenna was, but the version of her who had lied to him and betrayed his trust? That was harder to reconcile. One evening, after a long day, Matt sat in his hotel room, staring at his phone. A text from Jenna sat unread, the latest in a series of heartfelt messages she'd been sending him. I miss you. I'm still here, waiting for you. Whenever you're ready. I love you. Matt sighed, his finger hovering over the screen. He had a decision to make. Would he open the door to reconciliation? Or would he let this chapter of his life close for good?